Hi everyone, it's Roger and James here from the What's on Disney Plus podcast. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about all of this week's Disney Plus news, plus we're going to be sharing our thoughts on this week's Disney Plus and Star Originals. There's quite a few things we're going to be talking about, including the finale of What If. We'll be talking about Among the Stars and a whole host of other bits and pieces as well. But before we do any of that, quick bit of housekeeping. If you haven't already done so, make sure you do subscribe. You can subscribe on the audio platforms like Spotify and iTunes, and you can also find us on YouTube where you can subscribe as well. A big hello and thank you to all of our supporters over at Patreon and YouTube channel members. And what that does is, from as little as $2 a month, you help to support the channel, keep all the lights on, keep everything going, and helping towards all of our costs. And if you're a certain level, you get a shout out. So big hello and big thank you to Sarah for being executive producer level. Thank you so much for your support. Also a big hello to Andrew, Jacob, Khaled, also Red Marsman, Aero G, Andrew, Cody, Darren, The Juice, Lauren, and James. Well, over on the YouTube. So hello and a good to Ben, Raphael, Ice Cream Man 616, Adam, Robert, J Blue, My VCR Still Works, BNF, Joshua, Adam, Dawn, Martin, Jeremy, and Sarah. Thank you very much for all of your support. Let's jump into it. Okay, just a quick bit of housekeeping. I just want to remind, last week we did a Cruella giveaway. We had 5 copies to give away of a digital version. They've all been claimed. So hello to all. So I hope everyone that we had quite a few people respond. So I got back to you guys all on Sunday and let you all know. So thank you for that one. And thank you for Disney for sending them for us to give away. Right, let's jump into it. So it's been a little bit of a quiet news week, really. It's almost like they've got a big day coming up and kind of want to hold back a lot of stuff for that. So the big one really was a report that we're going to be getting an Agatha Harkness series for Marvel, for Disney Plus, kind of a WandaVision spin-off. Apparently, the actress as well has been signed up to appear in movies and TV. Though I kind of always view with Marvel actors, they're kind of they sign up for a amount of things, and where Disney want to put them is up to them, kind of thing. But yeah, so I mean, what do you think of an Agnes spin-off?
There's a lot of potential there. It depends on what kind of story they want to tell. Do they want to tell her throughout the years? You know, we saw her in those flashbacks to the Salem witch trials. Do we want to see what she was doing between then and the start of WandaVision? Or do we want to see what happens to her after WandaVision? Either of which could be interesting. I'm down for it. Admittedly, I was kind of surprised. It was like, out of all the characters you're going to do a spinoff, I'm going to do Agnes. But
but then I always tend to think, like with Marvel, it's like there's a spin-off starring her, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be about her or connected to her too much. There could be crossover with other characters. I know there's been some talk, and whether or not it has. Wasn't she the nanny for the Fantastic Four? And so that could be because this series could be a while off. So don't it doesn't necessarily mean this is going to be on Disney Plus by this time next year. It could be 3-4 years away, so that could be a way of integrating after the Fantastic Four movie. Also, like you said, they could be kind of just a follow on with her trying to get one up on WandaVision. I mean, it could be called something completely different, and she's just the main antagonist and all the rest of it. But I wasn't surprised. I mean, there's been lots of rumors as well in the last couple of days of Monica Rambeau getting her own spin-off, and I mean, I essentially we're in the same thing with Star Wars. Every character is a potential spin-off of her own solo movie or Disney Plus series. But yeah, so that one's pretty good. It does make me laugh now, because we've obviously got the Disney Plus Day coming up in a few weeks' time, and I'm going to get bet now. They're going to announce an Agatha series, Werewolf by Night, and Echo. Those will probably be the ones that they announce, at which point we already know about them. But they can just go, well, we told you officially that they're all coming.
Yeah, well,
so that's going to be my guess.
That, and I don't really listen to the rumors so much. So even though we've heard about many of these things, a lot of the time I'm kind of like, I'll wait until they officially announce it. We'll keep our ears out for this one and see where they're going with it.
I always have a view that if it goes out on the major trades like the Hollywood Reporter or Variety or Deadline or The Wrap, those are kind of like, okay, you've they had to go for a little bit more than just like some other websites and stuff to just kind of make stuff up. But yeah, so there definitely should be a little fun. Okay, moving on from there, let's now talk about some UK news. We had a couple of things confirmed this week, including the Searchlight Pictures movie The Night House is going to be coming to Disney Plus for the UK and other countries, though we haven't had the Australian or Canada release yet, for the 27th of October. That's on a Wednesday just before the Halloween, so that's kind of a pretty good time to drop a Halloween sort of a horror movie. We've also got a Book of Blood as well. It's a Hulu original that will be coming I think a couple of days later on the 29th. So that's kind of Halloween movies for everybody in the UK and elsewhere. And also last night we had a press release for The Walking Dead Part 2 of the 11th season. We're going to be getting the 8 episodes from the 21st of February. And there'll be new episodes every Monday on Disney Plus in the UK, Ireland, and I think a number of European countries like the Netherlands and Italy and Singapore, they're getting them as well. So they're doing like 3 batches of 8 episodes for this final season. So they're kind of stretching out that final season quite a little bit. But the last episode of the first batch is coming to Disney Plus on Monday. So there was a couple of bits of UK news. Also, there was a little bit of an interesting article that went up earlier this week saying that Disney Plus is kind of predicted to overtake Netflix in terms of the amount of subscribers it has by 2024. I think it's about shy of like 280 million subscribers worldwide with the expansion that they keep doing. And there's a lot of people that kind of go, there's a little bit of scoffing over it. Of obviously like no, they can't take it. Yeah, but Disney Plus still has to launch in a lot of regions. They've still got a lot of them. It's got the Middle East. It's still got of Asia to go. The whole of Africa has still got to run in. And I also feel there's a bit of a difference as well of those of us that have Star and maybe Disney Plus Hotstar, and those that are in the US on Disney Plus. I can see that there is a bit of a difference of like what you're going, well, it's not really good enough if you take away Marvel and Star Wars, where for us with Star, it's a much more broader appeal. But do you think Disney could actually overtake Netflix on that?
I mean, they could, and depending on the timeline we're talking about, it's probably, I wouldn't say a given, but pretty likely at some point. But I do scoff to a degree, not because I don't think they'll overtake it. I mean, sure, at some point. I'm just like, you can't predict that far out when it's going to happen. They're saying 2025. I'm like, yeah, maybe, sure. But a lot of these models, and they're not just like linear graphs or whatever, but a lot of these models don't take into account world events. They can't, well, because they don't know what the world events are going to be. They don't take into account like some huge new show that we know nothing about. Like, does this account for, or if we had done this projection 6 months ago, would it have accounted for Squid Games? Would it have accounted for the fact that there's nothing on Disney Plus right now? So it's not to say it won't happen. I'm definitely not in the like, oh, it'll definitely happen, or it'll definitely won't happen, whatever. But trying to say by 2025, like, your numbers are meaningless more than a couple months out from now.
To me, I think it's more about the fact that they're very bullish about Disney Plus pushing it. And there's been a lot of push as well with the move, I think, forward on getting sort of the shareholders and the stock price are really bullish on streaming and really want Disney to kind of lean in. I think because everyone's looking at Disney going, you can take on Netflix. You have it in you, but you have to be more focused. You have to be more focused on what they're doing. I don't think in the US at the minute they can do it with a single package. I don't think there's enough there to come in. Marvel and Star Wars are good, but they're not. I don't think they're going to pull in any. I think they're already predicting like the next quarterly results is going to be a little bit soft because they've had no international launches and they've had not really much to kind of get people in to Disney Plus. So. But they have stated of like, there's a big churn in India because of like the sports seasons when they drop in and out of like when the cricket season's off, a lot of people drop out, and that can have an impact. So I still think there's lots of testing going on. I think they're going to be at the top end, but I think just by launching it in every single country, they probably would have been able to get to a certain level at any point with just having any subscription service available in all countries will probably get into a certain height anyway. But it's been interesting this past week is there's been some announcements for Hong Kong and Taiwan because there was a little bit of a press thing kind of confirming the price and also confirming them for their release dates. Taiwan is the 12th of November. Hong Kong is the 16th. And kind of getting revved up. There's an APAC showcase coming up in the coming weeks ahead. And we've been seeing stuff from Japan. We've been seeing stuff from South America, of really kind of like revving up on these originals. I mean, there was a lot of, I think just this past week, we've seen some originals coming from like France, Japan, and Latin America, of which they've all been their press releases are all kind of stating now, oh, these will be available everywhere. We're seeing that happening a little bit more with these originals. And you got to look at, I mean, if you look at Squid Game on Netflix this week, that is, you've taken in a South Korean TV show and it's exploded. And, it's a South Korean, it's either dubbed or subtitled, your choice of how you want to watch it. And it's massive. I mean, this shows you, like, when there's a really good show, it can catch on. Language is not necessarily a barrier. I mean, I'll be honest, I did binge through the Squid Game in two days. I enjoyed it. There was a lot of people talking about how, nobody watches it with dubbed. I did. It was great with dubbed. It was some of the acting might not have been great with it that way, but it's a lot easier to watch.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of the people are like, people only watch it subbed or people only watch it dubbed. Generally don't get outside their echo chambers in that kind of thing. I know some groups can be very passionate about this is the proper way to watch. I'm like, whatever. Watch it whatever way is easiest or most appropriate for you.
I mean, I'm personally like the dubbed way of same thing with Lupin and Money Heist on Netflix. But there again, it's also showing the other thing of some of Netflix's biggest hits lately have all been international ones. They're all coming from different countries, and sometimes as well it's just a bit more exciting because you're getting something different. You're getting a different way of storytelling, a different way of doing it, different faces, different settings. And I'm liking. I just like the idea of not having all the stories all set in Atlanta or Georgia,
or filmed in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And I know this is what I've been saying with the international stuff is all these countries have different storytelling traditions than Western Europe or America have. And it's great to see these different perspectives. And even if the story is something that you're already familiar with, like, not even Squid Game. So just in general, stories tend to have pretty similar themes across the board. The way they tell it is different than what you're used to. And sometimes that's all you need. Just what you're used to, but seen through a different lens. It's really entertaining. And admittedly, South Korea has been kind of hitting it out the park lately between this Parasite a couple years ago in the theaters and Kingdom, their period piece zombie thriller.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Is it? Do you not think it's just because we've all got access to it now that they probably, I guess you could probably say that with any country and put their best free shows of the year. You could say it with Britain and go, oh yeah, the Crown. I'm trying to think of what other ones we've got. A couple of those, Sherlock, Crown, and I don't know, James Bond. Those are the three ones off the top at the minute. And they're all very big hits, but you necessarily wouldn't have seen, some of the really bad stuff.
That's definitely a factor too. We are only getting filtered by the stuff that people think is worthwhile to import into the other countries. So yeah, we're getting Squid Games and Parasite and so forth, and they're getting a big deal. We're not getting their equivalent of
Doogie
Howser. I was gonna pick one of the game shows that we got earlier.
Like Shop Class.
Yeah, we're not getting their Shop Class. We are getting stuff like the Great British Bake Off, but again, that's like the top of the pile, and we're not getting the low tier $5 budget ones. We're only getting the best stuff. So it does create a skewed view of like, oh, every show out of South Korea is amazing. Every show out of Japan is fantastic. It's like, no, we're getting the good ones.
Yeah, no, but there's a lot of stuff out there right now. But it's just nice to see all of this kind of coming through. I'm just looking here again. Like I said, it's been a bit of a quiet week. We've also had it confirmed. Disney are making a new American-born Chinese. That's going to be a new movie. Or I don't know. I think it's a series that's being created by the director of. Was it Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings? And also, we're getting another book, Daughter of the Deep, from Rick Riordan, is being turned into a Disney Plus movie as well. And I think they kind of go, we're Disney Publishing, we've got all your books. What can you want to do it? They seem to be kind of leaning in on the fantasy side. So it's good to see lots more things kind of going on in the background and some bits and pieces, some new series and stuff in development, which is what I think Disney needs. Disney just needs more original content. It can't keep relying on reboots and all the rest of it. So it's nice seeing them doing new books.
Although technically Rick's stuff is a reboot since there were the 2 movies, but we're hoping that these are better than those 2 movies were.
Yeah, I suppose you could look at that, but then I look at I think that he doesn't even seem to want to expect that the movies actually even existed. They're that far away from the books.
I think most of his fans are in the same boat. Just like, so if Disney can treat him right, there is a wealth of content for him to create, and they could have like a Harry Potter-esque universe going on. I realize that the story is not Harry Potter, it's gods and monsters, but that kind of young adult franchise, strong young adult franchise. At some point I got to get around to reading some of those books, I think. And because I know very little. No, I have read Harry Potter. No, the Rick Riordan books.
Yeah, I'm kind of at a point now. It's like, I'm probably better off just waiting for the series. So that's kind of news. Like I said, it was a little bit of a light week. I think we are at the point where they're just like holding off for Disney Plus Day coming up. So let's now talk about some of the new Disney Plus and Star originals that have dropped this week. So up first, let's talk about Muppets Haunted Mansion, which dropped yesterday. What did you think of this one?
I actually really enjoyed this one. I went in with low expectations. The Muppets in the last few years haven't been super great. I did like their most recent reboot, but it got a little samey. You know, the same skits over and over. This felt like more like the classic tales, like back from the 80s and such, the Great Muppet Caper and so on. That, which isn't to say it's on the same caliber as those were. It definitely wasn't quite as good, but on the whole, given that it was only an hour, I had a lot of fun with this one. I think
as well, actually, I think keeping it short helped. I think trying to stretch it out to a movie length would have really it just would have been too much. I thought it had a couple of good songs. Yeah. I was gonna, I could say it was a bit stretched at 50 minutes. I think they could have trimmed quite a little bit of it here and there.
Well, the wedding at the end was starting to really drag. They pulled that one out way too long, and it got past its joke expiration date. But that said, most of the stuff, especially in the first 30 minutes, was really entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, some good songs, lots of. I actually quite like the cameos, the celebrity cameos, because they weren't like, here's this person, wink, wink, wink. You know, it was like, oh no, they're actually playing, a character. And they weren't really hamming it up quite so much as I was expecting. So I was getting a bit worried with all the celebrity announcements. Going, what is it? Is it just going to be like, "Hi,
everybody"? and for the most part, it wasn't. It was just like, this is the person who is this statue's head, and they have 3 seconds of the song that they're singing, and that's it. And they handled it well. Like Danny Trejo was the most well-known actor, or maybe Nicole. Yevette Brown, I probably messed up her name. Those are probably the 2 biggest names in there.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It was a lot more easy to watch than I was expecting. I find with the Muppets, it's like, I don't know quite what it is about them. I like them in small doses. I just don't seem to like them like going on and on. And I think sometimes with the movies and stuff they can do. I think with the series it can do as well. I kind of feel like they should do like, like with Muppets now, if they just released like one of the skits a week, it probably would be much easier to kind of suck it up. But I thought it was okay. I wasn't blown away with it. I think the Muppets are such a weird thing of trying to get them right, and I don't think they can. I just don't think they're gonna. Whatever they do doesn't please a certain audience because certain people from different eras and stuff like it. I think my problem is I grew up on like Muppet Babies and the Muppet Show, so it was a kind of that era was very good for the Muppets, and then since so nothing's really kind of matched it because I didn't really think much of the movies.
I would agree with that in general. Like I actually really like several of the movies. Treasure Island and Muppet Christmas Carol are among my favorites. But yeah, I grew up with the Muppet Babies, watching them every day as a really small child, and then watching the Muppet Show when I got a little bit older. Going back to this particular movie, one thing I did appreciate though is that if you've been on the Haunted Mansion ride, they really did lean into that, and there were a lot of sequences like, oh, I love this part of the ride, or I know that part, and Yeah, the host is quoting as you get into the ride. You know, I'll be your ghost host, and is this room really getting bigger, etc. I had a stupid grin on my face for that. Without the context of the ride, I don't think it holds together quite as much. But I think they know their audience in this. I think they know that they really are going for no. This is the ride. They're doing the ride, and if you come to Disneyland, you can do this ride too. I think that's part of it.
I liked as well, like with the Muppets kind of playing characters from they weren't playing themselves. You know, so I thought that worked out quite. I mean, I love Miss Piggy as Madame Leota. I thought, and she, just like sneezed at the ending. Oh, just like, I did try it, and it was just that kind of thing. Like I like that because she wasn't playing Miss Piggy. It wasn't Miss Piggy, and because I find Miss Piggy can be a bit annoying, but generally as a whole,
she's supposed to be.
I enjoyed it. It was a nice, solid. I think it was this is what Muppets needs to be on Disney Plus. I think they might have found the right thing here of one solid 40-minute special regularly could be a way of keeping this brand going, rather than keep trying all these different series that just seem to, I don't know, just don't seem. They just, we look now of like we've had. Earth to Ned, which I know not technically a Muppet, but it was a puppet. It was made by the same team. We've had Muppets now. We've had this one. We've got the Muppet Babies animated series, which I felt a different level because I think that's for a younger audience. And then we had the Muppets ABC series, and the Haunted Mansion is easily the best. It's easily the best that they've done out of all of this. And it felt like they did. It felt like they had confidence in this one as well. They've been very heavily promoting it. They did a little drive-in event for the premiere. It felt like they were like, no, this is good enough. This is good enough to kind of get people into.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be AAA. It doesn't need to be Endgame or Rogue One or anything like that. It just has to be entertaining for the length of the movie. And as you mentioned before, I liked that they didn't go with the top tier actors. They went with recognizable but not huge names. One last thought that occurred to me while you were talking there is that I think they needed to lay off the meta jokes a little bit. There were a few too many times where they winked at the camera. And like, oh, why is this our cameo? Oh, budget. And I'm like, okay, that's cute. Yeah. And then they did the joke like a second time and a third time before. And it's like, okay, we get it. You're winking at the camera. Maybe not as many of those in future specials.
Yeah. So that one was pretty cool. So let's now move on to What If, the finale. So we got the final episode of that one. What did you think of this one?
That was a lot of fun. I liked how they tied everything together. The only disappointment being that we had this character in it who we're clearly supposed to know, which is Gamora, if she had gotten the Infinity Gauntlet. And we have not got her story. It's coming in season 2, and sadly, it was originally supposed to be in this one. We've seen merch, we've seen promo.
Well, I don't know where it actually is, but right behind me here, I actually have that Lego set of Tony Stark, in his gear, and I saw it and like, you seriously have just like that? He's in it for 15 seconds, and I've spent 40 quid on a Lego set that he's barely in it. And then, of course, you find out going, because this episode should have been in the first season, but they had a massive problem with getting it out on time and with COVID, and they had to get basically. I think they're on the lines of, because, like you say, Gamora got brought in, and we hadn't had her origin story, but we didn't really need it. I think we kind of worked it out straight away. But we are going to get that episode. It's just going to be in season 2.
Yeah, no, we definitely don't need that episode. You can put enough together with the context clues. The one part that's kind of sketchy is the Infinity Gem Destroyer that they built. Probably could have used a little bit more, like, because it kind of came out of nowhere, and there was definitely a moment where they're kind of like, this is from the episode, Gamora episode, and you're supposed to know what she's about to bring out, and then she brings it out, and you're like, I don't.
That's like the whole thing of like, all these Ultron guys. You're not going to wreck Vegas. You're not going to. It's just like, So just I enjoyed that whole aspect. I thought as a whole I wasn't so keen on the whole thing with Killmonger kind of with what he did. It was a bit. I mean, you saw it happening a mile off the minute he picked up the head. You knew he wasn't, and he wasn't really featured. You just knew he was going to do something.
That's the part that gets me. Not so much that he did the whole heel turn betrayal, like
Yeah.
like you said, you see that a mile coming off. It's that he did nothing useful up to that point.
Yeah.
So why is he on the team? It's like you recruited him to the team, excuse me, specifically so he could betray the team.
Yeah, because they knew he was going to protect. I don't know, but yeah. So it definitely, I really enjoyed it. It was funny because I was watching it and my wife was sat there and she did turn and goes, "Are you planning on growing up at any point soon?" I'm like, "No." She said, I'm just like, sorry, I have to watch this. I'm at work, and then she just started laughing away, going, I have to watch this. This is, and it's like, and it was just that kind of weird thing of just like, yeah, this is just great fun. It's like it's like Saturday morning cartoon, isn't it? Just like sit down, watch a cartoon. It's stupid. It's over the top. They couldn't do it in the movie. There is a question, of course, of whether or not Black Widow did she get put back into the main timeline, or is it?
I thought she got put into the timeline where Hank Pym killed everybody. That was my impression of it.
Yeah, I don't know because that was a bit of an odd one because I mean they're not going to bring. I mean that's one way of bringing Scarlett Johansson back in, but it's definitely that was the only one. But I thought it was a lot of fun overall. This What If series, it hit everything that I wanted it to. I was surprised with the combination of the big Guardians of the Multiverse kind of combination, which shouldn't have been because I'd seen some of the merchandise beforehand saying it, but I hadn't realized that they were actually going to do the Avengers. I mean, we kind of knew it because they had that whole flash scene where the camera goes around them, which wasn't in the episode, though, was it?
Not the one that we saw promoed. There was a gathering of the team or hero shot, but it was not the one that we saw previously. Yeah, no, I remember back. It's probably the episode right before What If actually started. We're like, well, maybe they are connected more than we think they are. They're not hyping it up that way, but some of the promo material definitely suggested it, and of course we got it. And I wonder if they'll do this each season. If there'll be another gathering, the multiverse is in crisis at the end of season 2, and if they do that, will it be these guys or will it be whoever's featured in season 2?
Yeah.
Because while this particular thing hasn't really happened in What If before, they did have the Exiles, which was an X-Men comic book. It went on for like 100-something issues, which was literally this idea. It was a cosmic character picking up people from alternate timelines and being like, all right, you got to fix this timeline over here. And it would have a rotating cast of new characters coming in and existing characters. Could they do that with What If season 2 and onward?
It also looks to me like they've kind of got an idea because apparently there was some talk of doing a Star-Lord series as well, spin-off. I'm wondering if this is the way of doing like some of the characters like Captain Britain and all the rest of it, of doing them through the back door for the MCU, of kind of letting them carry on doing their own stories, but we can kind of use them a different way, and also maybe carrying on Tony Stark, carrying on Gamora and Black Widow, and kind of carrying on these characters through the animated series, so they're not completely gone, but they're still using them, kind of thing. But yeah, I thought it was a solid episode. I really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the whole season, but I think I've kind of got I knew what to expect, and I wasn't getting my hopes up too much for it, and I think that definitely helped.
Yeah, no, go into it with the right mindset. While this final episode is fairly epic in scale, it's not Endgame. It's not. Everybody is involved, but it does tie the series nicely together, especially since we treated them mostly as one shots up to this point. Like, you don't have to see them. You could jump straight to episode 8 and just watch the 2-part finale. But seeing the backstory kind of made it a little bit better.
Well, I think like Party 4 wouldn't have made much sense. He wouldn't have made much sense of how he was acting.
I don't know. If you go back to the original Thor movie, you can kind of see how that would be an extension of that character if he never had, the wake up and mature moment, the are you going to grow up moment. Yeah. But yeah, it does make a lot more sense with the context of that particular episode.
Yeah. So that one there was pretty cool. We got a new episode. That one. Oh, I'm back in the room. Yes. Did you happen to watch Doogie Kamealoha MD?
I watched last week's episode of Kemi I have not seen this week's episode. So last week's was An episode. It certainly was an episode.
I'm gonna be honest. This week, I like she got into selling vintage sneakers online, and because her dad used to be a stock take, and I'm just like, oh, this is just so slow and so boring. It's just like there's no plot. This just going nowhere. I don't know. I'm just really struggling with this whole thing of I know not everything needs a villain, but there's no threat, there's no issue, there's just nothing. Her just being, this, and then at the end of the day, doing this YouTube video straight and going, I'm going to take some time out now and sort myself. Oh, really? It's just like, I don't know, just really struggling with it because the concept looks great. All the actors and stuff, but it's all just so one-dimensional. I'm really struggling with it. And it's like Disney can't keep putting stuff out like this as their main drama series in the hope they're going to take over Netflix. It ain't going to happen with shows like this. This is just not. No. It's just not good enough. Unfortunately, it's just this is basically this is just a Disney Channel show. She's 16, acting like a 12-year-old. It's like, I'm 16 and I want to go out to Starbucks. Like, if you're 16 in this country, you're off down the pub and down the park, doing drugs. So it's just like, really? She's like, the most thing she wants to do is go get a strawberry frappuccino. It feels so like any 15, 16-year-old watch this is going to be like, wow, no, this is not, we want to be a bit more than that by now.
Yeah, but I don't think the target audience is 15, 16. I think the target audience is 11 or 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
Maybe 9. This is the same target audience as like That's So Raven or shows like that. We are very clearly not the target audience for this. But it is kind of weird watching a show where there is not an overarching narrative. We've gotten so used to it over the last few years, well, decade really, of shows that are tightly plotted and one episode leads into the other. Whereas this one, you can really just watch. I'll watch episode 3 and then episode 1 and then episode 5. And it doesn't matter.
So I've got to get into this one on another Disney Plus original. So we had the Turner and Hooch finale this week, right? So you didn't watch it, did you?
I have not caught up on Turner and Hooch at all.
Right. So you watched the first episode or 2?
I watched, I think, the first 4.
Right. Okay. So what do you think happened in this finale?
Well, before you asked that question, I would have presumed that he got together with the girl finally. And
no, he literally got to the end of the episode, and then one of them said, "Maybe you should go ask her to dance."
Yeah, no, because you asked the question. Because you asked the question,
literally on the lines of, you're kidding me. You have dragged this out for 12 weeks. You've done the triangle, and you still haven't got them together. I was just like, this is just honestly. You could watch episode 1 and episode 12. And the rest of it wouldn't make a bit of difference. You wouldn't actually need to know it. They find the people that killed a dad because he had a heart attack while he was trying to arrest one of them, and they rescued him. And it was just like, oh my word, this is so lame. I'm just like, they really have got a, this series has just been on like cruise control for a week, or it feels like because I was saying, it was going all right and it was getting somewhere, and it just went nowhere. And it's like, you can't do it's like, is that it for a finale of like it? Like on a normal 24 episode season where you think it would have a reset and go into the next story. That's like that feels like that point, and I'm like going, look, we've got nowhere in 12 weeks of. I don't know. I was just disappointed in it. It's like I got Scott to the end and went, really? You've just wasted my time on going nowhere. You've had this overarching story, and there was no. It's like, oh well, we want to go into the second. Like, I know they do the whole will they, won't they thing, but you can't. You were laying it on like so thick. Just not to, I don't know. It just really just, I don't know. I was just really just underwhelmed. Just like, really, that was the best you could come up with. Again, this is not good enough to people. This is not good enough for mainstream audiences. It's just not going to cut it as a there's a reason why this stuff isn't in the Nielsen streaming chart and why it's not debuted, and it never will, because it's just not up for mainstream quality TV. This is this is just generic. These are the kind of shows you'd find on ABC, and they get cancelled after one season, and you never see them ever again.
Yeah, no, this is the kind of show. This and Doogie Kamealoha are the kind of shows that are perfectly fine to have running on the channel. Maybe doing like the 5 or 6 o'clock slot. They're good content to have in the background once you've already gone through the really good content. You've watched The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett and What If and Loki and so on. You're like, okay, what else we got? Oh yeah, I'll try this out, and kind of mindless fun. And they're Monster of the Week. They're not really supposed to have that overarching plot, even though this one at least pretended to, with the who killed Tom Hanks and will they, won't they? But really, it's Monster of the Week. Hooch has to be integral into figuring out how to solve a police procedural. But no, that's not how they were pitched to us. That's not how they were advertised to us. And it's perfectly fine to have the middle of the road show, but don't pitch it as your front runner. And now that we're in the gap between What If and Hawkeye coming out, it'll be even more apparent that they're kind of missing a showrunner, a star show right now.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Turner Hooch and Doogie are both nice, family-friendly shows, but there's nothing about them. They are vanilla. They are just a vanilla ice cream. There's nothing exciting about them. They're very plain. You can dish them up to everyone, and everyone can kind of, yeah, it's all right. But then no one's sitting there going, what did you have for dinner last night? What dessert did we have? You're just going to forget it because it's just plain and dull. And just at the minute, just going, this is just not good enough. It is just not good enough. And I think I'll be honest, it is that thing of, especially now there is a lot of other stuff dropping, and it's just far superior. And I'll be honest, had these shows been on another streaming platform, I wouldn't have bothered. Just wouldn't have bothered with them.
And this is what highlights the difference right now between American Disney Plus and then European Disney Plus plus Star is in America. Now we're sitting in a dead zone between the end of What If and the start of Book of Boba Fett and Hawkeye. What is the thing that gets you to check Disney Plus every week? And the answer is nothing, basically nothing. Whereas, and we'll transition here. Into Europe, you've got Why the Last Man. You've got
Only Murders in the Building.
That's what I was looking for. We've got upcoming Reservation Dogs.
Reservation Dogs, and then we've got American Horror Story and American Horror Stories.
Walking Dead.
The Walking Dead. It is literally, and to be honest, I think that is what's happening for me. It's just like kind of going, these shows are just in a different league to these Disney Plus originals. And you're sitting there kind of going, it's just not on that same thing. But before we go into those two, there is another show I want to talk about, or two other things I want to talk about from the Disney Plus side. Among the Stars, what did you think of that one?
So I've only seen the first two so far, and I think no one will be surprised. I am really, really enjoying the series, even though it's a documentary and most of the stuff I already know. It is I'm going to sit on the couch. The phone is upside down, so notifications are muted. Got all the lights off, and I'm just watching it. I'm really enjoying it. I'm actually thinking about holding off on the last couple episodes because I've got a new sound system coming in next week, and I kind of want to experience with that.
And actually, to be honest, I would recommend spreading them out a little bit because it does get a little bit sluggish, like mid of because we're in a kind of thing of, obviously we're following Captain Chris as his quest to go into space. And episode 5, he goes to space, and episode 6, he's in space and comes home. But episode 3 and 4 are still just he's getting ready to go. There's a lot of things in it. I mean, I have watched all 6 episodes, and I thought it was a great documentary. This didn't feel like a Disney Plus original because the quality is a lot higher. It's not aimed at kids. There's no silly overlay of voiceover trying to explain what's going on, and it's just following a guy going into space. It's kind of odd. I wouldn't say he's the most charismatic guy. He's very, very very straightforward.
This has been the problem with NASA since the beginning, and probably true of the cosmonaut program as well. the people that you want to send to space are not necessarily the most photogenic or media savvy. I mean, that was a large part of the point of First Man, the Apollo 11 movie from a couple years ago. It was like, no, Neil Armstrong, you don't put him in front of the camera. He has no like social skills at all. That was kind of the thing. It's like they even asked him a question like, what are you going to take to the moon as like a sentimental thing? And he's like, I take more fuel. And you're like, no, you're supposed to say something like, I'm going to take my daughter's bracelet, or, and he's like, no, I would take more fuel. That's the kind of people that astronauts are. They're very practical. And
it is funny now, because obviously they're having to do like a lot of media events, lots of streaming from space going to, there's a lot more involved in trying to get people. So they're definitely much more media savvy than they used to be. But it's a little bit hard, a bit sluggish to get along. I really enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend breaking it up. I wouldn't try and watch all 6 in one go, because it can be a bit sluggish. But there's some really great moments in here. The fact that they filmed this, and I mean, this isn't, you see, it's space. It's serious. This is National Geographic content. It's top level. If you enjoy science, watch this series. Very well made, very well done. It's a bit sluggish, but that's literally my only qualm with it. It's just like, it's only because it has to slow down a bit. The only thing that really gets me, and you'll see it in everyone, is this the guy that's running one of the experiments. He is brutal. He takes no prisoners. If they want to change something or do something, he literally, he's brutal. He's like brutally honest along the lines of, no one is messing up his experiment that he spent his entire life working for. They're all serious. There is no messing about. There's no game playing. They're all on. They've all got it on. And again, it is just very well done. Kind of interesting as well, because at the end, there's a whole thing with the SpaceX goes up, and kind of interesting seeing them in their new spacesuits. It doesn't look quite as it looks a bit like, really? That does looks like something you would go to. There are a lot more good stuff. But I was actually we were at NASA in Kennedy Center, because it was filmed just a bit before all COVID and stuff happened, and we were learning all about SpaceX and all the rest of it, and it was just kind of quite interesting, seeing all of that aspect kind of kicking into it. Eventually they got into the COVID era just at the last bit when they were going up, but luckily it didn't kind of stop anything. But just seeing them all hanging out at one of their houses in Russia and just chilling out and stuff. Just a very well made series. I really would struggle to say anything bad about it. It's just very well made.
It is. You just have to go in with the right mindset. Even by the end of episode 2, it's very clear. This is the journey of the astronaut, not a space documentary. It's not sweeping vistas of stars and the Earth flowing by for the most part. There are those, obviously, but for the most part, it's about this particular trip. SpaceX, I do have some opinions on their design aesthetic choices and form over function kind of stuff, but that's neither here nor there.
No, so moving on from there, we also had another new Disney Plus original this week, was Fauci, which was about an hour and a half documentary all about Dr. Andrew Fauci, who is one of the lead kind of scientists about pandemics. He was heavily involved in the AIDS and HIV pandemic back in the 80s and in the 90s, and then obviously he kind of rose to fame during the whole issue last year. Now, I'm going to be honest, I'd seen him on some of the press conferences with Trump and appearing on CNN and bits and pieces, because I do tend to watch a bit of American news. And I really didn't know who. I mean, it's like, okay, I know who he is a little bit, and then that was it. Kind of, he was just their expert, and he wasn't towing the line, kind of thing. And I honestly was not expecting the reaction to this Disney Plus original. They probably would have got less reaction if they'd put Deadpool or Family Guy up on Disney Plus. The reaction to it was very conflicted. Loads of people kind of complaining about this and not wanting it on there. And I mean, I literally asked a few of my American friends what was going on, because I didn't really understand why there was such a reaction to a scientist. Watching the documentary, there was the whole aspect. They were showing this stuff of what was going on, of him getting death threats. So he has to have security with him, his family getting threats, and just what a lot of the stuff he's had to go through, he kind of learned how to deal with during like the AIDS outbreak. Just a very interesting documentary. It's a little bit long-winded. Obviously, it's about one person. So they did cover all of this stuff, and they, played up on the fact of him having T-shirts and bobbleheads, and the family were just like, "Oh, we really don't understand what's going on here. Why he became the face of it all." They had comments from like Bono about his work in Africa, about going out there and getting loads of people with the treatment and stuff to help out there. You had George Bush talking about him as well, of going, he's not a guy you bring in to tell you what you want to hear. He tells you what you need to hear. And that it was I thought it was interesting to learn a lot more information about him. But I know it's been such a controversial topic because he just, for some reason, very strange. I mean, again, this is the difference of it being international. It's probably why they didn't announce it very much in advance. They pretty much just dropped it a few days before. I mean, technically, like some of the, we just didn't hear much about this one at all, although it had come out in cinemas for a short run back in September. But it was a bit of a surprise drop. Like I said, I watched it. It could have done with it a bit shorter. I think because I'd watched that Pride documentary a few weeks ago, which went into a lot more detail about the 80s and the 90s of what was going on then. That kind of helped me fill in the gaps a little bit on that aspect, because it was a little bit fluffy at some points. But yeah, I mean, there's so much footage of him doing it all. I mean, I if you're interested in the guy, you just give it a go. It's not for everyone. I wouldn't, I wouldn't say go out your way to watch it. But if you're at all interested in him, or you're just interested in, maybe the pandemic and all the reaction stuff that's been going on, then give it a go. But it's definitely not for everyone.
No, and it's the kind of thing where the people who should watch it to understand what his credentials are just going to dismiss it out of hand, which is. Yeah. I'm presuming what you're talking about in terms of reaction. Not being on social media, I got to miss all of that.
Yeah.
In fact, I hadn't heard about it until you just mentioned it. Although, if I had thought about it at all, I would have been like, "Oh yeah, this is going to be controversial for all the wrong reasons." Honestly, he's a guy.
Oh, you might get dropped out. But yeah, so it's definitely a bit different.
Yeah, no, this is a guy that we shouldn't know anything about, because he should just be in the background, and we take our cues, and the policy gets set accordingly. But we obviously found out a lot about him last year, because he became the figurehead for people rallying against masks and vaccines. Utterly.
Yeah, and I think as well, especially like for me personally. Not being in America, we had an entirely different system over here in the UK with our politicians and stuff, and the scientists were very much in a different stage. So a lot of this stuff I was completely unaware of. So it was definitely interesting watching it, and they did lean on it. They showed it, they explained it all. But it's not really for everyone. It's this kind of weird thing as well. Like this is the kind of stuff that needs to be on Disney Plus. Just like this and Among the Stars are prime examples of serious documentaries, but they get lost because the audience for Disney Plus isn't accustomed to this stuff. So it's getting they need more of this dropping. I think had National Geographic, if they were throwing up their more mature stuff all the time, this would help set this tone of of what's on Disney Plus in terms of like this kind of content. Because I think that this and Among the Stars they're very high quality documentaries. But a lot of the Disney Plus audience isn't looking for this on Disney Plus because, it's not been what's set up.
Yeah, and hopefully if this hypothetical merger with Hulu ever happens, or when it happens, people will get used to it the way they have in Western Europe, where it's, no, this is Disney Plus, where it's got mature content, where it's got Deadpool and The Walking Dead, and here's a documentary.
We had a load of documentaries about Hitler the other day and Afghan Bin Laden. We get, you get all those kind of things. There was one the other day about the King of Coke, and he's not about Coca-Cola, and there's a whole kind of, and it is that kind of thing there. And I think, documentaries can say those kind of stories. But yeah, it was definitely a different kind of Disney Plus original. I'm glad I've seen it. I wouldn't watch it again. It was a little bit too long, maybe, but other than that, it was all right. I'm trying to think what else we had. Oh, we had Lego. No, that was last week.
That was last week.
Yeah. So let's now talk about some of the other original series on Disney Plus internationally. So we had Only Murders in the Building. So I'm going to be going off the US and Canada and Australia's lineup. So this one was another solid episode. Kind of went right out of last week's episode where it was all silent. Now this one was, bringing lots more people in to help out. The police working with them. It kind of felt like momentum was building, wasn't it? Because things were getting fixed. Everything was going all right, and then it didn't.
Well, it's the false climax of the mystery, of course, where they're like, "Yep, we found the murderers and they've been taken care of, and everyone can be happy going forward." Like, probably not.
No. There was a bit of a herring because I was convinced Steve Martin's girlfriend was going to be the one, but wasn't.
I was in the same boat. And to be fair, in a murder situation like this, she is not eliminated as the villain, even though she was stabbed there at the end. Because that is a fun murder trick to be like, I couldn't possibly, because look, I've got this stab wound right here. I was stabbed by the killer, when in fact, just stabbed themselves. That said, she probably is not.
Yeah, no, but again, I just really enjoying the series. It's just top class. It's just such a great series. I just love the fact that Martin Short bringing in all these people from all these fans off the streets. I do find it funny though, of how it all works with these podcast stuff. But yeah, I just really enjoy this series. It's just full of fun.
Yeah, no, well, bringing the people in off the street, obviously, this is kind of a little bit of television theater, I presume.
Yeah,
I don't listen to the true crime podcast, but I have to assume that most true crime podcasts are not done weekly as the investigation is large. They're mostly written after the fact, and they're a compilation of everything that's been coming up. So this is mostly like, what if the investigation was going on at the same time of the podcast, and so on. But I'm sure that was a big moment for true crime podcast fans. We're like, yes, they're part of the investigation. This is because I think the majority of the audience for that kind of podcast really wants to be in on the investigation.
Yeah, I just thought it was good. I like the fact as well of like bringing the police officer in. She's helping him out, and they're helping her. And I just really solid series. Just really enjoying that one. And then we had Why the Last Man. I'm really enjoying this series. I mean, this again was just leveling it up.
So in contrast to Only Murders in the Building, you are an episode behind the American release at this point.
Yes.
Right. So So this is episode 5. The one that was released in America is episode 6. I'm following your release schedule on this, so I'm an episode, and I have to admit it's actually been difficult to not kind of keep going.
I bet it has, because I'm just really enjoying the series. Again, it's kind of, you got post-apocalyptic, you've got all kinds of stuff going on. They got this expert in that's kind of not, she's got a screw loose as well. You're not too sure what she's doing, and this whole thing going on with the agent, and you don't know who's she working for, what are they doing, do they know something? And then you got the whole the presidential fight as well going on, which I could have done without that series. That's the one part of the storyline I could do without. But I'm just finding it quite a fascinating little series.
Yeah, having had a bit of a politics overload the last several years, both global politics and then local for America, I'm just like, I don't need fictionalized politics. I'm kind of burnt out on all of this in general. So the whole presidential, who's going to be in charge, and this obvious fight that they're setting up for, I'm just like, I really do not care. Can you just have that in the background? Have York read the newspaper and see what's going on, and that's about it. Let's stick with 355 and Dr. Mann and York, and we go from there.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's just, it feels a little bit along the lines of like, you guys really just need to just stop fighting, because you're all quite happily in a little bunker fighting over who's in charge, but the rest of the world's gone away. But yeah, I like as well the whole thing of them going, protecting them, trying to protect the art and all the rest of it, and how they're all working it all out. Because it's funny seeing it a little. They did that a little bit in Walking Dead, and they raided a museum to get stuff that would work from the old times, because it would work, the exact opposite. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that series. The agent, you just don't know what she's doing. There's something sneaky going on that I don't know about, and I kind of like that.
Well, I like that she doesn't really know either. Like they dropped
Yeah.
a lot of hints this time that no, someone knew this was going to happen probably, or something was going to happen probably between her and the other agent, but she doesn't know what it is, and she's not willing to share all the secrets. So the other guys don't know what's going on because they don't know that there's this connection. And
Yeah.
I will say this is that stuff is not in the comics at this point in the story. They don't start dropping those hints until much later in the. So they're definitely accelerating it a bit here. Having said that, setting up this trip to California does kind of line it back up with the opening of the comic series. So if you've read the comics, you can kind of guess where they're going with this. And I'm not going to spoil it, but there is one specific thing that I'm kind of wondering if they're going to do or not. And we'll probably get to that in the next 2 episodes or so. So I'll mention what it is I'm kind of hinting at here at that point, and I won't go into it anymore.
Yeah. No, just like I said, I'm just really enjoying this series. It's definitely a highlight on the Wednesday when that one drops of just having just. And this is again what we're talking about. And then obviously, like on Monday, we had Walking Dead. That's been building up intensity. So between like these 3 shows, then you watch Doogie, and it just doesn't kind of. It's how that's why you're just like, well, it's just not cutting it. But no, just generally as a whole, there's just been a lot of stuff.
It's also 2 very different audiences. You're not going to be going. You need to keep your 10-year-old entertained while you're continuing to work, and they're doing their school stuff. So why don't you sit them down in front of Why the Last Man? It's like no.
But you look at like Why the Last Man, and it's like, okay, so they had a little bit of blood and guts and stuff. But I actually think the storyline is, I mean, I've got to imagine probably most 14-year-olds are going to find this much more interesting.
Yeah, that's why.
That's what the problem is for me is of like, I think Disney seems to just vastly underestimate how like what teenagers are actually watching. I think they tend to lose that audience because they're not targeting them right. They make the stuff for the adults, and then the teenagers follow that because it's not for them, and like all that for like. I mean, they make a few things for Freeform and so on, but I think that's where Netflix has been really coming in and just hitting that market much better.
And this is where that whole controversy, was it Hannah Montana from earlier this year, where that ended up getting canceled, where it really did feel like Disney.
Lizzie McGuire.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry about that. Where it really seemed like Disney just wanted a rehash of the old show just as adults, whereas the actual cast of Lizzie McGuire is like, no, we've grown up and the audience has grown up too. Let's do some grown up stories and obviously we don't have the full details on that, but that's certainly what it sounded like.
I am convinced that if they went with it now, they probably would have been able to get through what they wanted to do. I think they would have been a much better. I think you look at like what I remember someone in the Facebook was like, with Fauci, they said an F word, and I'm like going, oh, we still got some people on that zone. I'm like, yeah, it's it's like, I'm sorry, but I don't think little Timmy's watching Fauci kind of for entertainment point of view. But it was definitely that kind of thing of, I still feel like now they would be much more inclined to kind of go with that kind of thing a little bit more than they would have done back like 2 years ago when Disney Plus was still like it was just like the Disney Channel. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, so I think that pretty much is going to wrap up. Did we have any other originals this week? I don't think so.
No, I think we're just holding out for Reservation Dogs, which should be coming up soon, I believe.
Yes, so we're talking about that next week. That'll be one we'll be talking about next week. So that'll be pretty cool. So on that note, guys, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back next week with another episode. Make sure you go check us out over at whatsonDisneyPlus.com. Like, follow, and subscribe. And we shall see you guys soon. Later. I'd like to thank all of our Patreon and YouTube channel members for their support. You can become a member from as little as $2 a month, and you get access to our weekly Q&A and much more.